You're watching The World with me, Charles Aniagolu. Now, children as young as 8 being paid teaching salaries in Nigeria. The government in Mozambique discovers more than 30,000 people, dead or fictitious, being paid for jobs they didn't do. It's a scam that involves drawing the salaries of non-existent civil servants known as ghost workers, and it places a huge strain on African economies, costing them billions of dollars. Governments are fighting back, though, carrying out verification exercises of their workforces aimed at rooting out ghost workers and false claimants. In Mozambique, for instance, proof of life tests now mean that all civil service employees have to appear in person at a specified office to prove that they really exist. Well, earlier I spoke to the international business affairs analyst Michael Potter, and I asked him how big is the problem of ghost workers in Africa.
This is a major problem we're encountering, and particularly on the continent of Africa. I've got 4 examples to quickly share with you tonight of 4 different countries who were faced with this dreadful problem of ghost working. Actually, government money is being wasted, unscrupulously, managed by people working together as networks and, acting as facilitators for this ghost working phenomenon, which is robbing countries of much needed money, to invest in other things, and it's just been filtered away. It's a big issue around Africa, Charles, at the moment, and it really does need to be addressed.
And I mean, how does this actually
for
work,
example,
Michael? I was going to ask you, how does this actually work?
How it works,
I mean, is it workers who add sort of fake names to the payroll or enter their names twice, or what? I mean, how does it work?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's beyond one person's capability, so normally there's a network of people involved. The main area it's being targeted at is the government sector, the public sector. And, these are the areas where groups of people at all levels of the organisation collude together, and many of them are civil servants and working with agencies within the various governments, and they're actually colluding together to put together fictitious names, addresses, opening bank accounts, and actually taking salaries, drawing salaries from people that don't exist, hence the name ghost worker.
So how big a challenge is it cleaning out these ghost workers?
Well, yeah, that's a good question, Charles, and it's a big challenge. For example, you mentioned Mozambique. That's the recent report we've had within the last week. They've identified 30,000 ghosts, and from 2015 to 2017, it's cost them $250 million that has been washed away through this ghost worker syndrome. And as you say, they're implementing proof of life tests, and government now are having to become very strong on audits. 1 or 2 organisations, 1 or 2 governments have introduced technical biometric systems where individuals have to go on to a new high-flying system. So, there's lots of things you can do, but unfortunately, a lot of countries are still using mechanised systems that are open to abuse. And even the biometric system, if it's not used adequately, there's still flaws in that. So it's a big challenge. The biggest problem with this, Charles, is that when people are found, they're not actually brought to account. They're not actually being convicted. This is a big challenge for governments, actually finding these people and convicting them, and making them an example to other people not to do this sort of thing. Nigeria, for example, within the last 18 months or so, they're probing 62,000 workers, at the expense of 208 billion naira that's been washed away within Nigeria, and it's a big issue. Ghana, another country, 26,500 public sector workers were removed from the payroll in 2017. Kollibu Hospital, the biggest hospital in Ghana, identified recently 1,052 staff who are not accounted for. Where is all this money going to? Who is managing this? Who's taking the money? And, it's a big issue. Also in Ghana, there's cases of politicians taking 2 salaries and not announcing the fact that I'm taking 2 salaries, this is a big issue. Much needed funds that could be invested in capital infrastructure, in government services, in health and education, is being wasted away.
And Michael, just to buttress the point that you're making, I mean, in countries like Nigeria, we see recurrent expenditure, which includes a massive wage bill, taking up as much as 70 to 80% of the national budget. And in those circumstances, that drastically eats into the capital budget, which means that, as you said, the infrastructure deficit remains a growing problem, and many on that wage bill aren't even real. I mean, if the reports are to be believed.
You're exactly right. I mean, government public sector wage bills are anything on average from 8 to 15% of GDP. You've got cases across many African countries now of the young people, the under 25s, not being able to get into the work, into the jobs, into the system. Yet you've got older people still on the wage system who are not actually working but are being drawn salaries by fictitious means. So, this is a double whammy for countries who are trying to move forward and to invest and to grow their GDP. Such a large amount of the cake is being eaten away by this ghost working phenomenon. It's being wasted instead of invested.
Well, obviously, we've identified the problem now. The question is the solution. I mean, how much progress is being made in fighting this type of corruption?
Well, recently there has been movements that, Nigeria has introduced the President's Initiative on Continuous Audit. Ghana has, under the new president, Akufo-Addo, has implemented new audits to try and cut this thing out. There's the new biometric system that has been implemented across many countries now. Tanzania, as a country, has also started to clamp down on this. They've also realised that, a lot of their precious funding is being withered away unnecessary. So, what governments have to do is to keep on top of all this. You mentioned earlier proof of life tests. Are you still alive? Should you be on the payroll? Have you left the organisation? Have the financial systems, have the wages systems, is the information up to date? Are you still employed? Have you left? Even pensions is another area that are being paid fictitiously. It's not just salaries, it's also pensions, it's expenses, there's other things. So, what countries are trying to do now is to clamp down through rigorous audit, and it's the only way you can do this. You have to invest in rigorous audit to stop this thing happening time after time after time. You have to make sure that the systems you've got are managed by people who know what they're doing as well. It's all right having an all-inclusive system, but if people have not got the right skills to manage it, maintain it and operate it, there are going to be problems. So the only way you can solve this is by pressure from the top, coming from the leaders of the countries, and making sure that these audits are continuous, and that there's compliance, and that people are doing the things they should do. And also, that people are accountable for making sure that these things take place. And slowly but surely you would start to reduce the deficit. You're not going to do everything overnight, but slowly but surely, with continuous audit, you may be able to manage and reduce this fraud in a better way.
The international business affairs analyst Michael A. Potter talking to me earlier. Now, the Nigerian government has filed a $1.1 billion lawsuit against Royal Dutch Shell and Italian multinational oil company Eni in a commercial court in London in relation to a 2011 oil field deal. The OPL 245 oil field is also at the heart of an ongoing corruption case in Milan, in which former and current Shell and Eni officials are on trial. Milan prosecutors alleged bribes totaling around $1.1 billion were paid to win the license to explore the field, which, because of disputes, has never entered into production. The new London case also relates to payments made by the companies to get the OPL 245 oil field license in 2011. Time for a break now. Entertainment and sport are up next. Stay with us.
There's an old saying in Nigeria, thoughts and dreams are the foundation of our being. At First Bank, we dare to dream and strive to innovate, continuing our over 120-year tradition to be the first to offer new products and services to our customers. You first. First Bank.
You're watching The World with me, Charles Aniagolu. Now, you might have thought that the fastest animal on Earth was the cheetah or the peregrine falcon. And indeed, that may be the case in terms of locomotion, but when it comes to body movement, there is a creature, a lot less fearsome looking, that takes the crown. However, its name does strike a little fear. The Dracula ant, also known as the snapjaw ant, can be found in the Southeast Asian tropics and Australia. It possesses a jaw movement that goes from 0 to 200 miles per hour in 0.00015 seconds, which translates to around 90 meters per second. The benefit of this tremendous speed is they can attack, stun, excuse me,